Well, hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us for our program. My name is Helen Liu, and I'm the Programming and Partnerships Manager at Cary Library. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to thank the Cary Library Foundation. Their support enables us to bring programs like today's event to you. I'd also like to thank the public libraries in Bedford, Groton, Maynard, Needham, and Tewksbury for partnering with us on this program. Tonight, Beth will discuss the rise of the solo travel movement and redefine what solo travel is for travelers everywhere. This program is being recorded and will be posted to the library's YouTube channel. If you have any questions, please submit them to the Q&A or chat, and Beth will answer them at the end of the program. Now I'd like to introduce our speaker. Beth Santos is a passionate entrepreneur and community builder out to disrupt travel for women worldwide. She is founder and CEO of Wonderful, an international collective of travelers and travel content creators on a mission to make travel better for all women, and author of Wonder Woman: How to Reclaim Your Space, Find Your Voice, and Travel the World Solo. She believes passionately about amplifying the stories and voices of diverse women in travel, whether it's highlighting trailblazers through the 85% podcast or telling travel stories featuring women-owned businesses in her new show, World History. Beth has been named one of 17 changemakers shaping the future of the travel industry by Business Insider, one of 12 women to follow by Condé Nast Traveler, and one of 20 influential women in the travel industry by Travel Pulse. Copies of Beth's book are available for purchase through Bookends in Winchester. I'm going to put that link into the chat, but you can also borrow copies from the Minuteman Library Network. Welcome, Beth. I'm so excited to learn more about traveling solo.
Thank you so much for having me, Helen. And hello, everybody. It is so great to see so many people in this virtual room today. So it's so energizing. I just love to imagine all of you just in this space with me. So we'll just pretend we're all in a room and we're all sitting together and chatting with each other face to face, because it is such a conversation that I love to talk about, and I hope that you get so much out of this. And before I go into talking about myself and talking about the story of Wonderful and some of my just absolute best solo travel tips for you, what I want to actually do is take a minute to get to know you. So the first thing that I want for us to do together on this is to give you a little bit of practice using the magical webinar chat function. I know we all have gone through a pandemic together, so we all are familiar with virtual events, but in case you are a little bit rusty and you haven't done it in a while, go into that chat feature and type in your name and where you're watching from. I know that you're all in the general Boston area. Oh, you're not all in the general Boston area. Oh, this is getting excited. We have Judy in Maryland. We have Janine, who's watching from Lake City, Florida, on our way to Marco Island. We have Eileen in Tacoma, Washington. Lisa's in Hudson, New Hampshire. Mary's in Billerica, Mass. Joan is in Maynard. Sally's in Maynard. Julie's in Rochester. Oh my gosh, this is so fun. Gina's in New Hampshire. This is great. Larry and Peggy are in Charleston. Oh gosh, I love Charleston. Audra's in Keene. Carol's in Acton. Asmina's in Montreal. Very cool. Thanks for coming over the international borders tonight. Laura's in Groton. We've got Lisa in Portland. I love this. This is so fun. I honestly thought that everybody would be from around the corner, which Massachusetts folk, I love you all. You're my people. But also, it's great to see some national and international representation. Damaris, great to see you in here too. Okay, good. So clearly you all know how to do this. I'm not going to spend the whole time reading all of these because you all have won the day. Now I'm going to give you the harder question. This one's going to take you a little bit longer to write your answer for. What are you doing here? What are you here for? What are you hoping to get out of this event? What enticed you? What thought made you think, oh my gosh, I have to come. I have to be here. We're talking solo travel. This is my jam. This is what I want to talk about. What are you hoping to get out of our conversation today? I want to hear from you. So drop in the chat, share some of your ideas. Lisa's looking for encouragement to travel alone. Joan, how to travel on a budget as an older single woman. Eileen does some solo travel, but not yet internationally. Oh man, Linda wants to know how it works. All right, let's go under the hood. Let's figure all of this out. We're going to talk through it. Lisa's taken a solo trip once this year, but wants to do some more. Let's see. Penny, how to travel solo safely and how to start. Marcia is in Brazil. Nice. Usually Ocean Pines, Maryland. Okay, so we have some people who are actively traveling during this call, which is outstanding. I love it. There was one that was really good and I just lost it. It was about, okay, would it be safe for an 82-year-old to travel by auto in the US? Okay, we'll talk about that. Mary, just recently gone on cruises solo, now for road trips. Solo is new to me since my husband died. Oh, Mary, I'm sorry to hear about that. And you know what? I've heard that a lot, actually. There are a lot of times that people are exploring solo travel after the death of a partner, after a milestone. I've seen that a lot in the time that I've been doing this. And so you're not alone in that. Donnie, I want to hear from other women travelers. This is good. Nerve to travel alone safely. I want to go to Antarctica. This is so cool. Interested in the topic. I hike and travel solo. I want to learn some more tips and trips. Learn if it's safe to travel alone, travel solo internationally, travel solo as an introvert, 77-year-old travel to the Antarctic. Tips and tricks. Okay, let's do it all. We've got 53 minutes. Let's cover all of it. No, but really, I want to explain how this is going to go because as you've seen now, I'm going to give you hopefully loads of information. I hope that you come out of this with tons of notes. I know that this is also being recorded. I think Helen had mentioned that it'll be on YouTube. You'll get a link shared with you if you registered for this event. So you'll be able to review it, but I'll give you as much that I can. We'll pretend this is my second Matrix reference in the last 15 minutes. Pretend we're in the Matrix and I could just take everything from my head and I'm going to unplug it and I'm going to plug it into your heads. And hopefully we can get you everything that you need to feel confident and supported and informed about how to travel alone and how to do it in a world that is ever changing and ever evolving. But here are the ground rules of how this will work. Number one is ask questions whenever you want. I want you to feel safe and comfortable asking whatever. And because of that, I know we're not all sitting in a room together. We don't all see each other, but we're creating this space now. We're creating, look, I'm like physically doing it. We're creating this safe space here. There is no stupid question. You can ask whatever you want. I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I can at the best pace that I can, while also giving you the presentation. But I want this to be a conversation. This isn't just Beth talking at a monitor. Now, because this is not Beth talking at a monitor, I also want you to clearly understand this is not a recording. I am talking to you in real time. I will respond to you, Jean. I will participate with you because I think that makes a much more engaging presentation when this is actually not just presentation, but it's dialogue. So I want to make sure that you all know that you're in the space together. I'm going to keep an eye out for you and try to answer your questions as they come, but also you can help each other. That's the magic of this. I know a lot of you are coming in here thinking, oh, well, I'm not an expert. Actually, you all are experts. You all have lived experiences that can contribute and help one another. So if somebody asks a question and you have an answer, you don't have to have the answer. There's no such thing as the answer. The answer doesn't exist. An answer. Everyone has an answer. If you have something that you can share, drop it in the chat too. Let's help each other out, okay? And then if we do have time at the end, which I highly doubt we will, but just in case we do, if we have time at the end, then we'll do formal Q&A. But really what I will most likely do is just incorporate things as they come. So be here, be present with me, participate. Let's help each other out. No question is a bad question. And let's all learn from each other tonight, okay? That's my goals for all of us. Great. Now I'm going to introduce myself so you can meet me. My name is Beth Santos. I like to define myself in a lot of ways. By day, I'm the founder and CEO of an international women's travel community called Wonderful that I created 10 years, actually more than 10 years ago. I've been doing it full time for 10 years. By night, I am a mom of 3. That's why, for those of you who are parents of young children, I have so much energy right now because Nobody's talking to me in the background. I can just focus on all of you. It's like this magical land that I'm in where I've locked the door and my husband's in the house with the kids, but I'm at the office and I get to do this with you. So I'm really excited to be here. If you know parents of 3, then you understand that we're a little bit wild when we have free time. I wrote a book called Wonder Woman. It is a book we'll talk about a lot during this, so I don't need to go over it too much right now. I'm also a podcast host. I run a podcast called 85%, which interviews trailblazing women in the travel industry and tells some of their greatest travel stories, moments that change them and make them think about what travel is and who they are. And I'm also a cafe owner. If you ever make it into JP in Boston, which is where I live, my husband and I co-own Ula Cafe. It's right next to the Sam Adams Brewery. So come on by. We'll love to have you. And really the way I like to encapsulate a lot of this is one thing, which is that I'm a social entrepreneur and I'm a community builder. And I'm on a mission to change the face of travel. Let me explain what that means when I say the face of travel. First of all, I believe that especially women, but a diversity of people are not fully represented in travel. I think we're not spoken to all of us. I think there's a very narrow group of people that are spoken to in travel. They usually look like Anthony Bourdain, love him, RIP, but that's who the people speak to when they speak to travelers in marketing and in media. It's also what our travel leaders look like and most of our CEOs. And I believe in a travel industry that better addresses all of our needs and better represents us. And what you'll see in a lot of this is that there was a time when I thought that I was the niche and the minority in travel. And actually, what's really interesting about this, and I know this is not all women in this audience, so you'll have to have a little bit of grace with me because my world is really supporting and focusing on women, but I can help all of you. So stick around. But the point I want to illustrate here is that there was a period of time in my life when I believed I was one of the only people who looked like me who was traveling. And then I found out that actually women make 85% of travel decisions. 85% of consumer purchasing decisions are made by women in the travel industry. And that singular piece of information blew my mind because what I realized was throughout this whole life of traveling by myself, I really felt like I was the only one. Like I felt like I was alone. And then I realized that actually the whole time I was the majority. And we live in a world that doesn't treat women like the majority. It doesn't fully represent the diversity of travelers that are out there. And that's something I feel really, really powerfully about is creating more representation and helping people to be seen. But let's take a step back a little bit because I want to take you to a much earlier time. I was so grateful to have heard from Helen and the Carey Memorial Library about doing this talk, not only because I'm quite local, being in Boston, but also because I have history with the Carey Library. I actually spent a year of my life living in Lexington when I was in 4th grade. So I kid you not, I reached out to my mom. I asked her to go through her physical photo albums to find pictures of me in 4th grade. So here you go. We tried to find a picture of the Carey Library, but we couldn't find one. But she did give me a picture of my school, Bowman Elementary School, and a picture of me and my brother reading a book in the bathroom in 4th grade. So this is what parents keep of their kids. And this is what we had. But it's such a fun moment for me personally, this kind of circular moment of being a kid and going to this library. And I believe so much in the power and the magic of libraries and the exchange of information and free information, accessible information. And now being able to give back and to do that for all of you. So I know not just the Carey Library, but there's also 5 other libraries that are involved in this. I know Needham is involved, Tewksbury is involved. I think, was it Belmont or Beverly? There's so many, and I am so appreciative to everyone who has teamed up to host this conversation. I hope you get a ton out of that. Okay, now let's fast forward a little bit more and go on a little trip together. So I want to take you on a journey. Lucky for you, you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to have your passport. You don't have to have a stamp in that passport. You don't even need a driver's license. You can just sit right where you are. If you want to fasten your seatbelt, it might be safer, but you don't have to. But I want to take you to a place that maybe you've never heard of before, or maybe you have, and or maybe you've been there before, which would actually be really cool if you've been there before. Um, but it's a place that is very close to my heart. It's a two-island nation off the west coast of Africa. It's off the coast of Gabon. And the nation is called Sao Tome and Principe. And I'm curious, actually, in the chat, if any of you have been to Sao Tome before, or are familiar with Sao Tome. It's a Portuguese-speaking country. At the time that I lived there, it was about 150,000 people living in this entire country. So very small country, very small economy. Um, and and I was 22 years old. I graduated from college. I went to Wellesley College, got an art history degree. I graduated in 2008, which was a terrible time to graduate from college, if you remember the recession in 2008, and a terrible time to graduate with an art history degree. So what did I do? I traveled. I met a friend of a friend who used to run the Peace Corps in Sao Tome and Principe, and ended up staying and starting a nonprofit that he developed. And he had a guest house, and he would bring in volunteers and offer them 3 meals a day and a roof over their head in exchange for working for his nonprofit. And I thought that sounded like a great idea. So at 22, I up and moved to a country that I hadn't heard of before. And I lived on and off for 2 years. I did 2 summers there, working for his nonprofit and developing, if any of you are familiar with the One Laptop Per Child program that came out of MIT during that time. I was running a curriculum for 100 middle school students at the Sao Tome Middle School. And it was an absolutely pivotal moment of my life. And I think it was the first time. I mean, I actually had studied abroad before this. So I had been on a trip, and what I would very much define as a solo trip before. But this was a whole different level. This was a completely different continent than one I had been to before. I was moving, again, sight unseen, on a whim, not connected to really any program, not even really knowing the person I was moving in with. It was like I was telling Helen earlier before this call, like the things that we let our children do. I still look back at my parents and I say, what compelled you to just let your 22-year-old move to a country like this? And they said, we knew we couldn't stop you. We knew the daughter we raised, and we knew you were going to go anyway. So we just had to do this. Oh, Carol wants me to spell it. So Sao Tome, I'm going to type it out right now, and Principe. There's 2 islands. One island is Sao Tome. One island is Principe. The name of the country is Sao Tome and Principe. And I, moving to this place and moving to a place that was so small, it was a very hyper local experience. And I think that's something that stands out a lot, is it's not just traveling to a place with an established tourism ecosystem and infrastructure. It was a place that did not have a lot of tourism. And because of that, you kind of integrate with the locals very fast. I mentioned I got a job, I had friends, I had a boyfriend, I, was living a life of a Sao Toman. I learned to cook, we would fish from the ocean. It was wild, a wild period of my life. And I did a lot of writing because one thing that I really noticed was upfront the experience of being me in the world, and especially being a woman in the world, and the dynamics of that, the fact that women's experiences abroad, people's experiences abroad change, not just you home and you abroad. Every single place you go to, you are interpreted differently. You have, you respond to things differently, you're treated differently. And that was this time when I had the world really right up against my face. And I didn't have the words, or maybe I had too many words to talk about that. And so I started to write about it. I built an online magazine. I was sharing stories of my own travel experiences, and then also incorporating the travel stories of other women who are living in, working in the Peace Corps and living overseas and studying abroad and all different things. And we built this online magazine. That online magazine turned into an international community. It turned into a creator network. And now that's what Wonderful does. That's what I do during the day. I run a network of women travel lovers as well as travel content creators, women who have built their businesses or have built businesses or built livelihoods telling their stories. And we have a membership community. We have a traveler membership where we go on trips together. We have a 24/7 app that we use to connect with each other and share stories and, get advice. We have resources and courses. There's virtual events all the time that have, tips. I'm doing like a packing workshop next week, and we have coaches that come in and help. We have chapters all around the world, so you can plug into a local chapter and connect with other women around you. And we've built this really beautiful community. And then on the creator side, we run a number of events that really help people build blogs and online content and grow in the space of content creation and changing the narrative of travel marketing. And that's what I really focus on. Now, I think one thing that's always kind of bubbled under the surface for me is this topic of traveling alone and the lack of information that is actually out there. There's a lot of information that's out there about traveling alone. I'll say that first. There's so much online content, there's blogs, there are so many guidebooks, there's so many packing lists. And the thing about the information that's out there right now about traveling alone is that most of it is very tactical. So what to pack, where to go, where not to go. Those are, you can just Google it and you're going to find so many pieces of information. The stuff that's not talked about is how is it going to be gone for a long time, or even if you're not gone for a long time. How can we better understand what travel does to us and does for us? And how can we take those lessons ourselves, better people, better professionals, better parents, better caregivers, better partners? And so I ended up writing this book. And a lot of people, I call it Solo Travel Guide meets Travel Manifesto. But some people have called it self-help. Some people have put it in the philosophy category. They say Beth gets really philosophical. Some people have put it in the memoir category because there are some good travel stories in there. So it is much more than just a how-to guide, but it does have a really good resources section at the end. And what I hope to do with it is to kind of speak straight to the heart, like really to your soul, about what your solo travel experience is about to feel like. Maybe whether or not you've done it before. I think people who have traveled a lot alone still get a lot out of it. But like a well-meaning, aunt or a best friend who can kind of coach you through some of the things that you're about to experience and talk about some of the bigger themes at play here. That's really what this book is focused on. So I hope you grab a copy, whether it's, buying through the website, whether it's buying bookends in Winchester, which I know is the library call. Go on your local library, grab a copy. I hope you love it. I hope that as we get into the holidays, it's a very giftable book. I think it's a great book for a friend who may have recently retired or recently started a gap year or graduated or lost someone or is in a transition point in her life. And I think this book will be, I really do believe that it will help a lot of people. I hope it will help a lot of people. I'm curious how many of you know about the intention action gap. This is a real term. This is a phrase that refers to the fact that sometimes we humans have a plan, but then we sort of fail to execute on that intention. We say we want something, but then we don't actually do it. And I'll give you like a very real example of that. Maybe the number of times that you've looked at, the growing dish pile in your sink and you're like, okay, this afternoon, I'm going to get through that. And then the afternoon comes and you find other things to do. And then the next day you look at that sink and you're like, oh gosh, I never did it. That's the intention action gap, people. That's when you think you're going to do something, but the human part of you kicks in and maybe you don't actually do it. And this actually happens with travel a lot. Booking.com released a survey that shared that 74% of women, this is about women, but that's okay, everybody's relevant here. 74% of women want to travel solo. They expressed an interest in traveling alone in the next year. And then they also found that only about 23%, this is of people, so it's slightly incorrect statistics, but I think you'll get the point here. 23% of people actually do travel solo. So there's kind of a big gap between the percentage of people who express a desire to travel alone and then the percent of people that actually do. And this is all beside the point that Google Trends has actually showed that there is a skyrocketing interest in traveling alone. The search results have gone up 761% in the last couple of years. I think it was like 200 or 300% in the last year. So there's a lot of interest and there's a lot of intention and there's a lot of conversation about it. But sometimes there's still a lack of action. And I believe that there's a lot of reasons for that. And there's really, I'm giving you 5 because we could talk about this all night, but I'm giving you 5 misconceptions that I want to really systematically break down on this call. These are the things that we're told about traveling alone that I think sometimes keep us from actually doing it. And we're gonna go through them one by one. Number 1, that in order to travel alone, you have to be single and ready to mingle, by the way, right? You got to be ready for like that singles cruise, go meet some people. You can't have a family. You can't have a partner. You can't be caring for anybody. You can't have kids. You have to be totally single, ready to mingle. Number 2, that it's dangerous, that safety is the most important thing. And that you are going to be in real danger if you travel by yourself and you shouldn't do it. Myth number 3, that it's prohibitively expensive. Now, I'm not going to lie, travel is a privilege. That's something that we have to come to terms with. It's not, always the cheapest thing ever, but it also doesn't have to be the most expensive thing ever. And I'll give you some tools for that. Number 4, that it's lonely and that you're going to be lonely when you do it. Like playing a game of tennis by yourself, getting a couples massage alone. It's like a bad eHarmony commercial. It's like you're just going to be sitting by your lonesome with nobody to talk to because you'll be lonely. You'll have nothing to do. You're just going to sit there for a week in Paris by yourself, not talking to anybody, which to me actually sounds delightful. Number 5, that it only counts if it's far away. Like you have to be on a mountain by yourself, looking out into the sunset for 6 months. You need like 3 passport stamps in order to get to where you're going. And you're like totally in the unknown, uncharted waters by yourself. That this has to be this huge adventure trip. It doesn't. Okay. I want to take a minute to reframe, to take the next 30 minutes to really reframe what solo travel should look and be like for people and for us, because it doesn't have to be all of these misconceptions. It can be reconstructed in so many ways, and there are so many tools that can help you. So let's dive into some of these, shall we? I'm checking the Q&A just to make sure that we've got, okay, good. Everybody's just watching, listening with bated breath. I love it. But also the chat is here for you. If you have a response to something, if you want to ask something, if you have curiosity about something, go ahead. Don't feel like you can't talk about it now because you can. All right, let's go to the first thing. You don't have to be single to travel solo. You don't. Anyone can travel solo at any time in their life. It's funny. I speak a lot at this show called the Travel and Adventure Show, which happens in 9, sometimes 10 cities across the US every year. And I always have people come up to me at this show and they say, I don't travel alone because I'm married, or I don't travel alone because I have kids. And to which I reply to them and I say, you know what? I have a husband and I have 3 kids and I am in love with my family and I love to travel by myself. I love it because you know what? That's me time. That's my time to focus on myself. And I was at a book reading in Chicago and an audience member raised his hand and he said, which I love, and I'm going to hold on to this. He said, I like to say it's not traveling by myself, it's traveling with myself. I want us to take a minute to reframe this whole solo travel as not something that happens to you. Solo travel is not necessarily something that happens to you. It's not always, I was planning a trip with my friend and then they backed out at the last minute and now I'm going by myself, or I got broken up with and now I have to travel alone, or I'm single, I know nobody, therefore I am traveling by myself. It can actually be that you have a lot of strings attached. I call them strings in my book. You may have a loving partner and a young family and grandkids and a succulent and an iguana that needs feeding and a garden plot in the community garden that needs watering and your volunteer spot at your local library and that ESL class that you're participating in. All of those things could be things that you have going on. You can have a very busy and full life, and you can choose to travel alone. This is why you'll experience it more. You'll experience your trip more. There is no doubt that when you're traveling by yourself, the world is just like it was for me in Sao Tome. It's like, I like to say, up in your face. It's right there. This is a good and a bad thing. There's no buffer. There's no barrier between you and the world. It's just you and the world. And you're going to experience this more. You can enjoy your meals more. This is not to be understated. Have you ever been in a restaurant with a friend and you're chatting and you're talking and you're catching up and you eat your dinner and then you look and you're like, I don't even really know what I ate. Like, what did I even order? Because I was so engrossed in the conversation and the environment and the music or whatever it was. And I wasn't even thinking about where I was. I wasn't enjoying this space and this place. I wasn't eating my food. So giving yourself time to just appreciate where you are, sit and eat a meal by yourself. You are not one half of a person. You are a whole person, just as you are. You deserve to have time with and by yourself as you choose. That is something that I think especially a lot of women are discouraged from. We're told not to spend time by ourselves, or that if we are by ourselves, it's because we're lonely. We might not be lonely. It is okay to prefer or to enjoy time with yourself. And by the way, you can meet a lot of people when you travel alone if you want to. There's a lot of opportunities to do that. We'll talk about that in one of the next tips. Solo travel is about great self-connection and self-care time. These lessons can be really useful for you to take home as a professional, as a partner, as a parent, as a friend. We'll bring that up as well. I want to make sure we get through all these points, so I'm not going to ramble too much. But this can be a choice that you make, and it can be something that you do for yourself, and it can be something great for you to do. And I'll show you this really quick picture. This is me traveling as a new parent. I went to Tel Aviv 7 years ago, and I was traveling there. I had my oldest daughter was 11 months old. I left her at home with my husband and literally cried the entire way, going to in the airport and going there. And then my first day took a Sandemann's tour. Put that in the comments here. Sandemann's is a tour they do Europe tours and they're free. And it's walking tours. And I did a walking tour and I went into the old city of Jaffa, and we were walking around and we were going through the market, and I sat down and got a cappuccino at a cafe, and I was chatting I wasn't even chatting with people. I was just watching people and watching the world go by. And you know who I met when I was there? I met me. And through this whole time as a new parent, I had been engrossed in that mindset of new parent life, right? Of just seeing myself as a mother and seeing myself. And I had, in a lot of ways, lost that part of myself. And being able to travel alone was this miraculous opportunity to reconnect with that person again. And I really feel like in whatever stage of life you're in, solo travel is that moment to reconnect with that person that is inside of you. It's also not something to be afraid of. And I know I touched this one very carefully because I know that we are told that traveling alone is dangerous. In fact, I liken it to one of two narratives that I think are often told, especially to women when we want to travel alone. This second narrative is what I like to call the Taken narrative. If any of you have seen Taken with Liam Neeson. Basically, long story short, his daughter gets kidnapped, and then he has to use his like sexy Irish crime fighting physique to go and save her and fight people. That doesn't have to happen. It's not going to be like every single time you travel, you're going to get kidnapped and Liam Neeson is going to have to save you, no matter how much the movies try to make it sound like that. Now, let's go into that myth busting. Is it more dangerous to travel alone than traveling with a group? Sure. Yeah. Of course. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, if I'm not traveling with my 6 brothers who are bodyguards, by the way, I don't have 6 brothers and they're not bodyguards, but say I did, sure. Yeah. It's safer to travel with them than it is to travel by myself. You have to make all choices by yourself. You have to rely on your own gut. You have to be more self-aware generally. You need to be the person that is making these decisions. Absolutely. It is more dangerous in theory. It is more dangerous to travel alone. But I would stop short in saying, full stop, it is dangerous. I don't think that that is a fair assessment about traveling alone. Now, let me explain why. We are on the receiving end of a lot of materials that tell us the top 10 safest places to travel to, or, top whatever, most dangerous places. There are literally these articles that exist, top dangerous places, to travel to in the world, places you should not go to. And the reality is that these answers are very different depending on who you are. Your solo travel experience is very different based on what you look like, how your body works, what kind of travel experience you have, how much you've done this before. And I like to say, I've created this thing that I call whatever. It's called your personal risk profile. And basically what that means is it's providing nuance to this conversation. So think about these questions when you're thinking and analyzing, is this place safe or unsafe for me? What is my racial and ethnic background, my sexual orientation, my religion, my gender identity? How accepting is my destination going to be of me based on how I look or who I am? And how will that affect my experience there? That's like 5 questions, but it's one question you can ask. How accessible is this place to your physical body? How will you feel traveling there with any mobility constraints that you have? What language do you speak? Do you speak the language of the place that you're traveling to? Is your language spoken very much in that place? Have you traveled before at all? Have you ever left the country before? Are you dealing with any past trauma or past experiences that might create certain expectations around your future travels? Do you interpret the world around you in a way that maybe managing unfamiliarity is something that you need to keep in mind? Do you have local connections? Do you have family there? Do you have friends? Do you have a contact that can help you out? These are all just elements. And I know it means there's so many more things to think about. All I want, Beth, is just a list. Somebody just give me a list of where to go. I know it would be so much easier to have that, but those lists are pointing you in the wrong direction because they're written for Anthony Bourdain. They're written for a very specific person with a specific set of experiences and backgrounds and intersections. And not all of us are that person. So we really have to look at this. And by the way, there's more to think about because all of this information changes. It changes with time. It changes with the weather, the climate. It changes with socio-political environment and events. It changes as you grow as a person. Every time you are planning to travel somewhere, the context of all of these things change. How much you've traveled before, where you're going and how you look or what you believe in contrast with what it's like in the local community. All of these things are very different. And so I want to give you that nuanced perspective of, I think it's very problematic to just say, these 10 places are unsafe, these 10 places are safe, because the question is safe for whom? And that's a really important thing. I want you to look at this with eyes open, thinking about who you are, what your experiences are, and how this can help you. Okay. Number 3, solo travel does not need to be expensive. We're going to get into some of the tactics. I know that's what you all are looking for. So let's do that. This does not need to be, this is, I don't know if any of you are familiar. This is Scrooge McDuck jumping into his pile of money, right? He has like this room with just piles of money and he just dives in there and goes surfing. And I loved that show when I was a kid. You don't have to be Scrooge McDuck in order to travel alone. Now, a lot of people ask me about the single supplement. This is a fee. It's basically when you try to book like a cruise, and those cruises usually expect two people to be in a room. But if you want the room to yourself, you have to pay a little bit more to make up for the cruise line's losses because they were expecting to have two people pay for that room rather than one person. So the single supplement is when they're kind of increasing the price for one person. And a lot of solo travelers don't love it, but also really it's just cruise travel that does that now, maybe a couple of other very limited examples, but most places don't have single supplements quite in that way, unless it's more like a fully organized trip. But here's how you can travel solo without spending a ton of money. The first thing I would say is thinking about deals over destination. So give yourself options of where you want to go. One of my favorite things to do is to go into Kayak Explore, which shows you like a world map. So if you go to kayak.com and then you go to the explore function, it shows you a world map and you can literally say, I want to travel anywhere sometime in November and I want to spend less than $300 on flights. And then it'll show you all the places in the world that you can travel to for that amount of money. And it can be really fun. You can really start gaming it and kind of figuring out, okay, is there like a really good deal to Brazil right now? Let's go. So sometimes it's about finding those deals. I would also recommend Hopper. If there's a place that you really, really want to go to, you can have Hopper watch flights in that area. Travel Zoo often has really good vacation packages or just really big flash sales. So finding those deals when they come. And also, by the way, this is a good tip too, thinking about the destination and the cost of that destination. So Iceland might be cheap to travel to, but it might be expensive when you get there. So really making sure that you're budgeting effectively based on where you're going. And within the US too, I think that's very much applicable. Number 2, shop and get gifts at the grocery store. Honestly, I think the grocery store is like one of the best hidden secrets of travel and also traveling alone. I could spend a whole day in a grocery store when I show up. Actually, that's what I do. I call it my day zero. I get there and I plan nothing. I just explore. I take a walk around. I notice what's around me because when you're traveling alone, you don't have somebody else who can notice things. You don't have another person who's like, oh, that's how you get on the bus. Noted. We'll use that next time. Or, oh, this is, what the currency is here. You have to do all those things. So take a day zero, get in a day early, take a walk, explore, write down your hotel on a piece of paper so that you're not relying on phone battery dying or anything like that. Have it on a piece of paper, put it in your pocket and have it in the local language or the local, what am I trying to say? Script. And just notice things. And then you could go to the grocery store and spend the whole day there. I love just walking through the aisles and going through, what are the local cereal characters here? Like, what are all the things that can happen here? You can get really good souvenirs there as well. Ellen, I love that you brought up hostels because I'm going to bring this one up too on a different slide. You can also stay with a friend, by the way. I totally think staying with a friend is solo travel. When we think about solo travel, again, it doesn't have to be going far, far, far away. It could just be going to a place, making that decision to go to that place by yourself. And yes, you're interacting with people when you get there, but this is your trip. You're going on your own. There's also 2 really good places I would recommend. Trusted House Sitters is a platform where you can stay in people's homes for free in exchange for taking care of their pets. And pet owners, by the way, this is really good for you. Same deal. If you're traveling somewhere, you can actually have a pet sitter stay in your place for free, and you don't have to pay them for the pet sitting. So it goes both ways. Home exchange is another one. If you have a home that you can exchange with somebody else, it could just be for a few days. It could be for a week. It doesn't have to be like exactly like you're traveling and the other person's traveling at the same time. You can just offer your place for time, and then also at another time you can travel somewhere else and use the home exchange platform. So staying with people, doing trusted house sitters, doing home exchange, those are really good budget options for traveling alone. Work abroad, go overseas and go abroad are two really great platforms for finding work abroad, gap year abroad, even study abroad opportunities. And by the way, it is still okay to splurge every once in a while. We all don't go on that trip and like not do the one thing that you've really wanted to do because you're trying to budget. I know it can be a little bit more expensive when you're traveling alone in the context of you're not sharing a hotel room with somebody and splitting those expenses. You're not maybe sharing a meal with somebody and splitting those expenses. I got it. But you can still choose to spend money on the things that are important to you and just plan those in advance. I like to encourage people to have two budgets: the pre-trip budget, like what's your hotel room going to cost, what's your flight going to cost, and then the during the trip budget. How much are you going to spend per diem when you're eating and going on experiences and going on excursions? Okay. Myth number 4, that you will be so lonely. Ellen, this is for you. Oh, Carol, this is for you too. Traveling alone does not have to be lonely. In fact, you can meet so many people when you're traveling alone. You can also not meet anybody. That's the beauty of traveling by yourself. You get to decide who you want to interact with and when. Here's how you can travel solo without being lonely at all. Number 1, I think a small group trip is what I like to call the little sister of a solo travel experience. You're going on a trip, it's organized. It might be a multi-day trip. You could do it through Intrepid. They have great small group trips. G Adventures also does ones as well. They just started doing something called Solo-ish, which is cool. And what was my point on that? Oh yeah. So those are, planned experiences. Also, you don't know anybody that you're traveling with. They're all strangers. So it might as well be the same thing as showing up in a place and you're around strangers. So it's okay, I think, to go on a group trip. Take a class or use Volunteer Match to find a volunteer opportunity. Go on a study abroad program, even if you're not study abroad age. There are a lot of people who are at retirement age that are studying abroad. Sign up for a remote year. A remote year is a really neat program. You can sign up for a month, you can sign up for 4 months, you can sign up for a whole year where you're actually working at your day job, but then you're traveling with a group of people. You can do a whole year, which is 12 destinations, 1 per month, and you're working during the day, but they're organizing all the logistics for you. So you have a place to stay, you have a workspace, and you have your destinations, and you're traveling with that group, but working during the day. Number 4, stay in a hostel. So thank you, Lori, for answering Carol's question, because yes, Road Scholar also does really fantastic trips all around the world, and they focus on an older audience as well, which is great. I will also say, to the point of hostels specifically, hostels are, and I think this is, yes, this is to Ellen's point about youth hostels. Hostels are actually a fantastic budget solution for solo travelers. Hosteling International, if you didn't know, is a nonprofit, and it's age agnostic. You can be any age. There are people in their mid-70s that come. There are people that are in, their younger years. There are people that come with families. Now you can get a room with an ensuite bathroom and a kitchen that you can cook out of. So then you're able to, use the grocery store, save on money, but then have the ability to cook and meet other people. A lot of them have free walking tours that they organize, and free excursions and experiences that you can do together. Speaking of, are the individual portions at restaurants massive like meals here? Oh, Carol, depends on where you're going, I think. Wherever you go, I think that answer is going to be different. You could always try to ask, but I generally think the US eats more, but that might just be my own experience. Joan, I didn't know you could stay at a hostel as an older person. Yes, a lot of you. There are some that are still kind of old-fashioned, and you want to stay away from party hostels. If you go to Hostel World or Hostel Bookers, I'm writing these down. Those can help you. They are rating websites that help you find and they rate hostels. So you'll be able to look at the ratings and people will tell you this hostel's really loud. I wasn't able to sleep. There are very luxurious hostels now. I mean, they're still hostels, but they're nice. You know, you can have a queen size bed, your own room, a desk, again, ensuite bathroom, and access to a kitchen. So definitely check those out. That's really, really helpful. Um, Walking and foodie tours. So Airbnb experiences is coming back. I also know that ClassPass is going to start doing experiences as well. You can even find these a lot of times when you're booking your accommodations, your hotel will have recommendations, your hostel will have recommendations. I love doing a foodie tour on a day zero. It's a great way to get a whole bunch of eats, but then also be able to connect with a local who could answer a lot of questions for you. You know, how do I say thank you in the local language? And where would you recommend I go for the rest of my trip and all that sort of thing? And then the last thing that I'll say, which I love, 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 and is one of my favorite tips, is to get dinner with new friends by what I like to call Airbnb for dinner. And there's two companies that do it. One is called Eat With, and one is called Traveling Spoon. And both of these are basically somebody who's making dinner and say they're like, I have a recipe. It's my grandma's bulgogi recipe. It serves 8 people. I'm going to charge for 8 spots at my dinner table. And sometimes it's like $5, or sometimes it's a chef, you know, prepared meal or a foodie tour. But you actually can sit down with 5 strangers or 3 strangers or 10 strangers and all have dinner together through Eat With and Traveling Spoon. So it's a really great way to have a dinner plan, to not have to eat dinner alone, but to be able to connect with other people. The other thing that I will tell you about, if I remember, is, Luggage Hero. And I think Stasher is the other one. I've just put like question marks on that one. This is a really fun, just little tip. It's not about traveling, not about being lonely, but about tactics for traveling alone. Those are really great luggage stashing places. So if you have like one day in a location and you have your luggage on you and you don't have somebody else who can hold it for you while you go out, these are small businesses that will hold your luggage for you for a fee. Usually it's like $1 an hour. And so they can do that. And it's amazing. You can have them come. Ellen, if you hire a tour guide at the start of your tour, they're very helpful and can suggest, yes, absolutely. How helpful is Google Translate? So helpful. In fact, you can download offline versions of Google Translate now so that you can have them. There are also versions where you can speak, into it and have it speak out. So it has gotten really, really good and is very, very useful. I would still have a couple of phrases practiced because this is nice to be able to do that. But Google Translate does do a big difference. Now, I would also say, some of you may be familiar with SIM cards. Now there are eSIM cards. You can Google a lot of them. Like, we can also follow up with some resources to give you an international plan, or just make sure that you're calling your phone company. T-Mobile has, amazing international plans. My AT&T plan is like $10 a day international plan. It automatically turns on. Just make sure you've called your phone company to sort that out. But yes, really great questions. Okay, last one here. The myth that you need to travel thousands of miles away or for weeks at a time for it to count. Travel is a mindset. It's not an itinerary. What does that mean? It means when you go out, you can travel so much just by challenging your preconceptions, trying something new, getting uncomfortable, letting yourself step out of that, into that comfort zone, out of that comfort zone, and trying new things. You do not have to go thousands and thousands of miles away in order to do that. So here's some good, awesome. Thank you, Ingrid. Here are some good tips on how to start that solo travel journey. Easy. Start 90 minutes from your house. Pick a direction. Get in your car. Pack a bag. Treat it like an international trip. Book a hotel. Get childcare. Get pet care. Whatever it is. Make an itinerary. Make a budget. Build what I like to call your travel muscles. Really build those out so that you can practice the art of traveling by yourself. Explore the outdoors. Go hiking. Go for a meetup. If you've used meetup.com, they do hikes together. People do all different experiences together. Take yourself out for a date. Eat at a restaurant alone. Just literally practice the art of eating at a restaurant by yourself. The number of times that we don't even do that is just going out and taking ourselves out for the day and choosing to be with ourselves is amazing. I love this. JM, one of the best trips was a solo trip to Washington, D.C. I spent a whole day at the National Gallery all by myself. It was so awesome. And it can be. And by the way, even if this all scares you, even if you're thinking, I don't know if I want to do this, I don't know if I'm going to like this. I have people that come back to me and they're like, I didn't really like traveling by myself. And I used to say, that's okay. You don't have to like it. You don't have to do it. But now I say, that's okay. You don't have to like it, but you should still do it. You should keep doing it because it makes you, because it's good for you. I have this picture of this kid eating his vegetables because it is like vegetables. I believe that traveling alone is actually very good for you. It builds situational awareness. It builds problem-solving skills. It teaches flexibility. It teaches you to be calm under pressure. It teaches cross-cultural communication. It teaches you to be comfortable with being with yourself. It takes you out of the context of home, out of the context of your environment. And by the way, for those of you who are looking for a few more tips, this is a very, very useful toolkit that I wanted to share. And I know it's been at the bottom of the screen, but I wanted to point it out. And I know that the library is going to follow up with an email that will have this recording, but then also these resources. This has all of that packing tips, where to stay. It has a destination guide in it. It has other books to read and follow up on resources. And I'll also add for you, if you are looking for much more specific, like I want to go on a trip to X, where should I go? Or what type of walking tour should I sign up for? In the book, at the end of the book, and again, you can get this from your library, so it's free. It is packed with a resources section that has, here are some of my favorite walking tour companies. Here are, oh my gosh, VAWA, Vacation with an Artist. You can go and apprentice under an artist. You can learn Chinese calligraphy in China next to an artist, next to a calligrapher, and learn their craft for a week. You can do woofing, which is when you work on an organic farm and you get 3 meals a day and a roof over your head in exchange for helping support and work on this organic farm. Kind Traveler is a socially conscious hotel booking platform that gives back to the local community. So there's all sorts of really good resources like that. You can just go through emergency tips, where to find free bathrooms wherever you go, organizations that can help you, apps that are really helpful. Oh, your son is a woofer. I love that. Yeah, so all of those are really good. Definitely go to the resources section, but also make sure you download this toolkit. It will give you helpful tips. You can have it right now and you can have it follow up. I know we're close to that hour, so I want to take a breath and say thank you for hearing my story. I know there is so much more to cover, and I love how engaged you all have been and how much you've been commenting and asking questions and sharing your experiences with one another. It has been absolutely incredible to see that. Jessica, I missed your comment, but I love the discount rail and train passes. Going in places where being on a train or traveling overnight might facilitate travel while also having a place to sleep. I think that's really smart, a really good hack. Everyone has their own story, and this is just mine. This is my things that I've experienced, the twists and turns that have come along the way. The book tour, when the book came out in March, was an amazing opportunity to connect in person with so many people who have a lot of these questions and need support. And I want to encourage you to continue to seek out those opportunities to learn and to grow and find new ways to step into the unknown. Carol, are there other travel books you recommend? Yes, so many travel books I would recommend. One of my most favorite books, which is a little bit more of those philosophical books, is called Beyond Guilt Trips. It's called Mindful Travel. I'm typing it as I say it, in an Unequal World. It's a book by Anu Taranath. It's going to give you a little bit more of that like philosophical. If you want more tactical, this is a really good one. It's called The One-Way Ticket Plan. It just came out last year by Alexa West, and it has a lot of hard tips on how to budget, how to plan your trip, how to how to travel with a friend from home and how to make sure this all works, what's laptop etiquette when you're working abroad, all this like really good stuff in here. Oh, this is the one from a new Beyond Guilt Trip. Sorry, I'm giving you guys all these things right now. This is the one. So yes, and again, in the resources section as well, there's a ton of books in here. So read, 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 go to your library, grab a copy, go out into the world, make this year, 2025, the year that you go and have these amazing experiences. Make this trip your own. I wish you so many wonderful adventures, so many learning opportunities. And I thank you so much for spending time and energy and being here and being present. And I look forward to hearing about your amazing adventures. Thank you all so much. Have a great, wonderful trip. And I look forward to hearing more from you.
Thank you so much, Beth. We've learned so much and so many wonderful tips. I can't wait to scroll through the back of your book again and jot all those down. And thank you, everyone, for all your questions and your comments. We're all excited to get out there and start traveling alone. So thank you so much, Beth.
Thanks, Helen. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.